model year 2025, Fox has introduced 3 brand new dampers to improve performance across the board for cross-country, trail and gravity disciplines. These continue to use the proven spring-backed internal floating piston or IFP technology from their previous Grip 2 damper, but they've really optimized each of these dampers for the specific use cases to give riders in each of the disciplines the performance and the adjustability and the sort of compromise of weight and ultimate descending performance that they're likely to desire. Crucially, these dampers are backwards compatible, so if you've got an existing Fox product, you can upgrade these dampers into that chassis, which is really nice to see from Fox to take care of their customers like that and to offer that option if you're wanting to upgrade your fork to the latest and greatest. First up, we've got Fox's brand new Grip SL damper. This is a damper that the riders looking for the lightest weight and most pedal efficient platform are going to be looking for, and it's still based on that grip style technology, so you still get ultimate descending performance, or certainly more of a descending focus than your traditional kind of efficiency based damper platform. They've got a 3-position firm, medium and soft or open descending mode lockout lever on there, and they've really focused on making this easier to use on the fly, so even if you've got weight on the fork, you'll still be able to turn that dial and select the mode that you want it to be. And they've also designed it so that it's going to be easily remote lockout compatible for the riders who want to have that hands-free adjustment up on the bar. This Grip SL damper is designed mainly around the 32 and the 34mm platforms, and the damper is adjusted and made specifically for each of these to optimize its overall weight and performance for each of the chassis it's available in. Moving up to the trail and the gravity platforms, you've got the new Grip X and the Grip X2. Both of these dampers are designed based on the existing and very successful Grip 2 damper, but with some refinements and adjustments to it just to maximize that descending performance and the overall tunability that Fox is able to obtain out of the new dampers. The first big change that Fox was able to implement is larger architecture in the damper to allow them to increase the size of the IFP. And basically they're just adding in extra valving to the fork dampers to allow them to add extra tunability and really focus on fine details, fine adjustments within that damper to obtain the damping curves that they were desiring. The overall aim with the new Grip X and X2 dampers are to increase both the tactile feel on the ground, so letting the rider get a little bit of the feedback from the terrain below to make sure that they know what's happening under that front tire, but without introducing any harshness. And they say that this is obtained by increasing the overall quality of the damping as opposed to making the fork just move more freely and give a more overall kind of supple response. That's not necessarily what they're saying that people are looking for, only that quality damping trumps all. Overall, Fox really focused on refining the adjustments to reduce the crosstalk between them, meaning that you can adjust the low speed and the high speed compression and rebound independently of each other without affecting each other, which is really nice to see. They also focused on reducing the response time of the damper, meaning that from the very second that your fork either starts rebounding or compressing, you're going to get damping acting on controlling that movement and just generally maintaining that contact patch with your front tire and rear tire on the ground to increase the traction overall. To avoid riders having to go in and really work on the shim stacks inside the fork themselves, Fox has still provided a nice and wide adjustment range, but they really focused on making the compression and rebound adjustments wide but also very usable, meaning that there's no harshness that creeps in at the firm end and also no loss of control that creeps in at the soft end, meaning that riders are going to be able to play about, really obtain the feel of the fork that they're wanting without any compromise in performance, regardless of what end of the spectrum that they sit on. Focusing on the Grip X2 damper, the gravity damper that's really for the riders who are looking for uncompromised and ultimate descending performance, and they're less concerned about the way up the hill. So you're going to find this in the 38 and the 36 forks on bikes that, typically a rider is going to just be focusing on that, maximizing that descending performance. You've got very kind of familiar adjustments if you're coming off of a Grip 2 damper, in that there is high speed and low speed independently adjustable compression on the top of the fork, and then independently adjustable high and low speed rebound on the bottom of the fork. And really, some riders may be thinking this is just a standard Grip 2 damper, but of course Fox has worked on the upgrades, really just maximising the performance out of the familiar architecture that they've got in here to deliver the best control and performance for riders looking to push hard on the descents. And then we go down to the trail damper, and perhaps the most interesting, certainly in my perspective, of the new range. The Grip X damper is certainly, it takes a lot of the cues from the new Grip X2. It shares the same internal architecture that I mentioned, upgrades. So they're saying that it's going to deliver all of, or at least most of, the descending capabilities of that Grip X2. But you've got some different adjustments to play with. Most interestingly, and slight departure from your typical adjustments that you might find on a Fox fork, is the Grip X's kind of pedaling platform adjustment. So on the high speed compression rather than the low speed compression, which is maybe where you'd be expecting to find it, you've got a lockout lever on there, and you know, the high speed compression will go through its full range of motion, starting off just as a standard high speed compression lever up until about the halfway point, beyond which you start adding some pedaling platform as a internal needle starts getting depressed and closing off an orifice to deliver increased pedaling support, but not a super firm lockout. And then once you get to that very last adjustment of the high-speed compression lever, you activate an extra little piston inside the fork or lever inside the fork that closes off an orifice to create a very firm lockout. But crucially, this has got a blow-off valve inside it, which still allow the fork to move out of the way if you have an unexpected harsh impact on your climbs, or if you forget to unlock the fork on the descents. Analysing the field of trail enduro riders, Fox identified that perhaps not all riders are looking for complete tunability of the fork in terms of both high speed, low speed compression and rebound. So they decided to simplify things, allowed them to lose a little bit of weight out of the damper by just opting to go for a low speed rebound adjustment and internally valving the high speed rebound to a level that most riders are going to be comfortable with. And yeah, in doing so, they've shaved some weight off the damper. They've added a little bit of simplicity and ease of setup for riders perhaps who aren't looking or aren't familiar with how to set up their high speed rebound perfectly. And yeah, just generally simplified, kept it lighter weight, and just focused on the adjustments that riders are really going to be able to use to maximize the performance of the Grip X equipped fork. This is a damper that you're going to see a lot of, I think, between aggressive light trail riders on 120, 130, 140 mil travel bikes, probably in a 34 mil chassis. Then you've got the kind of bread and butter 150, 160 mil middle of the road all mountain bikes that you're going to see a lot of these on. And then potentially even enduro riders on a 38 mil stanchion fork who still want to add a little bit of pedaling efficiency to their ride from time to time. You'll still be able to find this damper on them. So it's nice to see that Fox is offering the choice between Grip X or X2 for these longer travel forks. I mean, you can really take the chassis that you want and add the damper in there that you think you need to really maximize the overall performance and rider experience. In terms of options, the lineup is very much similar to the outgoing Fox 3468 lineup. There's minimal chassis changes here, no new travel options necessarily, so you're still going to find the kind of range of products you expect, just with a little bit more choice there between the Grip X and X2 and SL dampers. So every rider should be able to find the ideal kind of setup for their bike. As with our Tech Check features, this is not a long-term review and not intended to be as such. So far I've logged 2 pretty good rides on the new Fox 36 equipped with a Grip X damper, but in terms of my familiarity with the trails, in terms of the time that I've been able to really put into tuning this fork to deliver the absolute maximum performance, it's been limited. So I'm only going to give you some of my takeaway impressions so far. And you'll have to stay tuned for the long-term review coming to the site in the coming months, where we're going to be putting a lot of miles into one of these, and we're excited to do so. And yeah, you'll be able to find out our long-term impressions there. First up, it's a Fox fork, and as expected or as normal, setup has not been much of an issue. It was, you've got an air pressure indicator on the fork leg. It was a case of figuring out my weight, sticking in the recommended amount of air pressure in there, which wasn't much different to what I'd run on a Grip 2 equipped 36. And yeah, from there it was really plain sailing just to get rebound set up to an appropriate speed, stick the compression, you know, just slightly past middle of the scale, which is where it would typically run for me on a Grip 2 damper, and then really just play with that high-speed compression lever on the fly to obtain the performance and the feeling from the fork that I wanted as I was going on the ride. Standouts are that it still feels very much like a Fox fork, except for maybe with a little bit more of a supportive overall feel in the middle of the travel. Whereas I've found in the past that some of the Fox forks can feel, you know, very nice and smooth and compliant throughout the stroke. They're not necessarily, without really ramping up the low speed compression, would give me the most support in the middle of the travel that I was looking for. Whereas with this, just sticking it into that kind of initial middle of the road compression setting has given me plenty of support and really just helped me feel really nicely in control of that front wheel and able to push fairly hard for the 160mm travel fork that it is. I've been really focused on playing about with the high-speed compression dial on this Grip X damper because for me that's the most interesting thing, and of course Fox is really focused on making something new and unique with this adjustment. For the first half of the travel of stroke of this dial, there's definitely a big adjustment or big difference in the feeling of the fork, but not in your typical kind of, not when you're climbing, not when you're sort of on a slightly flatter gradient of trail. It's only when you start pushing it hard that you feel the extra support of the extra high-speed compression damping coming in. But then once you go past that halfway point and you start acting on the kind of pedaling platform, it is a really notable difference that this fork provides as you start going towards the end of that dial's adjustment stroke, and you really feel the fork firm up in the early portions of its travel. And then once you hit that end stroke and that last adjustment dial where you're getting a really firm platform, the fork's almost locked out. It still does have a tiny bit of give to it, which is nice and just keeps things a little bit more comfortable. But then if you do hit something hard, there was a couple of times where I'd transition from a bit of a climb on a fire road into a bit of a descent and then not have the time to reach down and adjust that dial. It really makes a notable difference having that blow off on the damper just to keep your wrists safe and keep you in control if you do forget to unlock it or you don't manage to before you take a big impact. Overall, this is still very much a Fox feeling fork. It's nice to see the refinements coming in there. I think a lot of people are going to find a lot of use from that high-speed adjustment to create that pedaling platform on the fly. One thing I was a little bit unsure about is the dial, certainly with gloves on. It's a little bit on the stiff side to operate, whether that'll wear in a little bit and become easier through use, I'm not sure. But yeah, certainly it was a little bit difficult at times just to get enough purchase on that dial with gloves on, but potentially gloveless riders or just people with stronger hands than me are going to find it okay. And it's not necessarily a huge issue, I wouldn't say, just something to be aware of, and potentially I'd like to see some knurling added to that dial just to improve grip in there. But overall, so far I'm certainly happy with the performance of the Grip X damper. Very intrigued to get on both a Grip SL and a Grip X2 fork in the future. And yeah, stay tuned. We're going to be riding a lot of Fox forks over the next year just to get to the bottom of their performance and to see how they stack up compared to a very competitive field. Hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this tech check feature on Fox's new grip damper lineup. The SL, the X and the X2 have got us really excited to get them onto more bikes and test them out on the long haul. For now, leave us a comment, let us know which of these dampers you'd be choosing to put on your bike. Give us a like if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel to see more awesome content on awesome suspension, shiny products like Fox's new lineup. Thanks for watching, catch you out on the trails.